All right, everybody, welcome back to the Millennial Sales Podcast, episode 265. It is the first day of December 2021. Get ready, people. It's the last month of the year. This is where sales dreams are made or broken. This is the podcast where young salespeople come to learn about how to get better at their sales career, what to learn, how to get the next job, how to make more money, how to find the right job, whatever it might be. Thank you for joining, and thank you for chopping it up with me today. Super excited. Today's episode, I've got an interview with Laura Guerra. Laura, aka LG, is the VP of Growth over at Pavilion, formerly Revenue Collective. Before that, she was Senior Director of Sales at RingDNA, Director of Sales at the Eat Club, as well as a few other sales leadership roles. She loves, fitness, golf, leading, just generally up-leveling herself. And we had a great conversation. It's a little bit quicker. We were on a bit of a tight timeline, but man, we jam-packed a lot of good info, and she jam-packed a lot of knowledge in, a 20 to 30 minute interview. So I think you're really going to enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. I felt perked up. I felt energized from LG's energy. And, just a quick shout out, like you've probably seen me tout this on LinkedIn if you follow me there, but Pavilion, again, AKA formerly Revenue Collective, if you know that name, has been instrumental for me and for my career and my learning and development. I joined just under 2 years ago, and essentially it's a membership community for some thousands of the best, sales and marketing leaders in the world, especially if you're in SaaS or tech. There's no better way rather to, learn and up level and just be part of a community with such amazing people that are heads of the companies that you look up to, most likely, and the most successful SaaS companies in the world. So it's truly amazing. This isn't a paid ad. It's just a service that I love, membership I love. I really enjoyed the conversation with LG. Two quick notes before we get to that. First, please subscribe wherever you're listening to this show. It's coming to you free, but we'd love if you could subscribe if it's on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. If you are on Apple, leave a 5-star review. That helps. I'm on LinkedIn. Again, Tom Alemo. That's the best place to check my content. The second announcement is just a word from our sponsor. Postal.io is sponsoring this podcast. They're our OG sponsors. They help create a curated marketplace for salespeople, right? So in this digital world where we're not visiting customers, we're probably not going to get coffees or dinners, you can create relationships digitally. You have to. And one great way to do that is through Postal. You can send anything as small as a $5 Starbucks gift card as an intro call. You could do, a bottle of wine celebrating a big deal. You could even put together a more curated event for all of your top prospects for a beer or wine tasting or something like that, which is really cool. So go check them out, postal.io. Checking them out helps to support this show, and they're good friends of ours. So show them some love, show me some love with the subscribe. And on LinkedIn, without further ado, let's get to my conversation with LG. Let's go. All right, now on the Millennial Sales Podcast, we have Laura LG Guerra, the Vice President of Growth over at Pavilion. LG, how you doing?
What's going on, Tom? It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to stay sane amidst all of the Q4 craziness going on.
Absolutely. I hear you there.
My sister's getting married on New Year's Eve, and so I'm telling everyone, please, for the love of God, have whatever contracts that we need, whatever timelines we need. We've got to do it before then. I don't want to be in between like dancing to shout and like emailing you about a, procurement question. So that's, my fingers are crossed on that.
That's smart move. I talked to my team about linearity, right? Like not waiting until the last day of the month, last day of the quarter. So yeah, smart move.
What's your tip? How do you coach on that? I'm curious.
So I think it's, integrating some of the, whether it be incentives or some of the stuff that's typically held for quarter end, and even actually providing incentives for like month one of that quarter, right? Versus waiting until the third month of the quarter. So that's something that I've done in the past. And also like creating some sort of compelling event, right? It could be a special onboarding, some sort of special launch, not necessarily a discount, but some sort of additional offering or incentive on month one, and really just being transparent with the prospect, like, hey, like a big initiative for us is linearity. It's the first month of our quarter. And so like if this aligns with your timeline, let's figure out if we can make something happen this month.
Mm. How I know there's obvious reasons why that's important for the holidays and things can get pushed, but that is actually something that my director of sales talks a lot about is the linearity. How important is that for you if you're looking at two reps, they both close the same amount of money, of revenue in a quarter. One does it like pretty linearly, maybe like 25% the first month, 25 and then 50, or one person like closes nothing for 2 months and then lands it all the last week of the quarter. Like, do you view them differently?
No, transparently, no, right? Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like results are what matter.
Yeah.
And in terms of like viewing the rep and their overall performance, that doesn't make an impact. However, it's really just about eliminating risk, right? Like
Yeah.
if you're waiting until the last month of the quarter, which is what like a lot of reps get comfortable, like, all right, like, I dust off the last week of the month, like jitters and anxiety and that push, and take a few weeks off to let the foot off the gas, like that's when you should actually be going in head first so
Yeah.
that you can like go into the last month of the quarter thinking strategically. Any deals that come in, great, but you're not waiting and like feeling that sense of anxiety the last, month of the quarter. So
Totally.
yeah.
That makes sense. So I want to get into your career a little bit. So I saw CU Boulder, D1 cheerleader. Is that right?
It is. Yep.
And then first job out of school in sales, like went straight into sales. So talk to me a little bit about that, like how you got into sales and maybe how the competitive world of cheerleading, which I imagine you've probably done your whole life up to that point, kind of prepared you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a pretty, I think, rare career path in that like I knew I wanted to be in sales since I was a kid, which
Wow.
my friends in school were like, I want to be an accountant, like I want to be in advertising. And I was like, I want to get into sales. And they were like, okay, like loser. And I'm like, look at me now, right? Like it's a great career if you're doing well, like it's
Yeah.
kind of a big joke. But yeah, so my mom was actually in sales kind of in the like pre-SaaS on-prem software days and door-to-door sales. And she's like, this is a great career. If you like helping people, if you like making money, if you like solving problems, like this is the path to go down. And so, just watching her and seeing her success in sales at a young age inspired me to get into the field. And so I would say with cheerleading, I was a gymnast for years and a cheerleader at University of Colorado, go Buffs. And I would say that taught me a few different things. And I would say like the first being discipline, right? And that's why a lot of hiring managers tend to hire athletes, but I think it's more than just athletes, right? Like it's whether you learn a new language, whether you have learned how to play an instrument. It's really about mastery, right? Like, does this person have the discipline to master something? And so I think that's what cheerleading taught me at a competitive level. And in addition to just like performing under high levels of stress and pressure, right? Because that's what sales is. It's continuous levels of pressure and stress and being able to be resilient and overcome that. So I think that is most importantly what the competitiveness of cheerleading taught me.
I love that. So your mom, all of while you were growing up, was in sales, and I feel like the common thread that we usually hear about salespeople, if we're not exposed to that, is like the used car salesman, right, or the Wolf of Wall Street mentality, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But you seem to have had like a very positive reflection of that at an early age. Like, wow, mom is kicking ass. She's making good money. She's doing really well. Like that was what, and you're like, I want to be like that when I grow up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I saw her like flying on plane, like going to France to close deals, like flying first class, like, so watching her success gave me a totally different view of the field in general. And I think that's why like so many of my friends who didn't have parents in sales, right, had it's kind of the joke of the group, right? And so certainly I think the environment that you that you grew up in. And that's why, like, to this day, I'm like, with some of my friends that like aren't sure what they want to do, I'm like, you got to get into, like, at least try sales, right? Like, I always, that's kind of like the other joke with our friend group is like, LG is always trying to get people who aren't in sales into sales. Because there's 11,000 open sales tech jobs right now. So tremendous opportunity for people in the craft. Like, even if you're not the most amazing at it, like, you can still build and grow and be successful. So huge advocate of just like of the profession in general.
What would you, and I know some friends that have transitioned different careers that they were in for 5 or 10 years into sales within the last few and have seen success and like, wow, I didn't even know this world existed. What would you tell those people if they did transition over to sales from another job and they were just starting? Like, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah. So the first thing, and this would be my advice to, I guess, not just even sales, but really any profession, is, I don't know if you've read The Talent Code by Daniel
No.
Coyle. It's a book that KD had me read, and it's one of my favorite just sales and business books in general, but it really talks about the fact that like, while many people believe that talent is predestined, you have a great deal of control over your success and over your ability to build your skills. And so I think oftentimes, and like, I was one of those people that was like, oh, I was born to be a seller. Like, no, I just always was around that growing up. And my first job at a college when I was 16 was selling clothes for $4 an hour plus commission at 16. So I was just always surrounding myself and practicing the scale of learning people, understanding what they care about, and then speaking to how I can help solve their challenges. So it was something that was practiced over time. But that would be my advice to anybody looking to get into sales, is just like, know that it's going to be hard. It's gonna suck. Like, and even for a lot of SDRs transitioning to their first AE role, first 6 months, building pipe, learning the craft, it's going to be very, very difficult. And so it's like anything else, it's just taking an incredible amount of time to build those skills.
So you were at 16, that was your first job selling. Where was that? What?
The Buckle.
The Buckle? That's like a local like belt company, or what?
It's like a Midwest,
Okay.
like, gosh, what are those, like, trucker hats and like Lucky jeans, like very Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah, I had some pretty cool outfits. Maybe I'll rock them one of these days. But yeah,
So when you got into your first job post grad, was that human scale?
It was, yep.
So like, you have this mentality about sales, you've learned indirectly from your mom, you're selling things at the Buckle. Like, what was the first job experience like for you coming out of school?
Yeah. So Human Scale is a global manufacturer of ergonomics equipment and consulting. So this $1,000 ergonomic chair that I'm sitting in right now, we sold like height adjustable tables, LED lighting. So it's a pretty old school industry, with $500 million company with almost 400 sales reps, where we were selling through distributors. So same thing as a car dealership. We would sell to dealers as well as directly into companies. So we would call, for example, the global head of real estate and facilities at Uber and say, hey, I see you're opening a new building. We should talk about standardizing your equipment with our product. So, like, again, not SaaS, super old school, like field sales, right? Field sales, we didn't have any sales tech. We had Cornet, like generic CRM and lead list, and it was the good old cold call days. And how I got into that was just through a connection, and I interned for them in college and just learned like an incredible amount of like the traditional skills that you need to be successful in sales. The first being like presentation skills and public speaking. So that is something that's like not often taught in inside sales today. So that was a really big focus at the time. And I also learned that, people like to talk about two things: themselves and their work, which is why I love being on this podcast today. But like, again, so often like reps get caught up in like my product, our features, me. And so that was like a really a big lesson from that company. So yeah, definitely interesting to see like how my career has evolved since then. Dramatically different than the role that I had after that at Whil. So.
So I want to talk about Pavilion for a few minutes because everyone that knows me knows I'm a huge advocate for it. It's one of the best career decisions I feel like I've made I made it about, almost 2 years ago. First of all, VP of Growth, is that just a different name for VP of Sales, or do you have other responsibilities that you're in charge of too?
It's really just a different name. When I joined Pavilion, we were only B2C, right? So anyone listening to this podcast could go online and fill out an application to join the community. Now we are selling corporate memberships. So so it really common phrase for B2C kind of growth hackers, but really the same thing as a VP of sales.
Got it. So what has been the biggest difference for you in selling, working other places and selling like a physical product versus at Pavilion? It's a membership. It's, there's like all this opportunity that someone has, and there's these schools and events and networking opportunities and knowledge that you can gain, but it's hard to like really, you can't just like show someone, so they can't like touch it and feel it really like you can with another type of product. How have you all like gone about that, like maybe in a different way, or maybe it's the same thing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've sold, physical products like chairs to mindfulness and emotional intelligence software, to food tech, like literal lunch programs, and, a membership to a community. So the interesting thing about that is, the methodology is all the same, right? And I think people have different sales methodologies, but my personal opinion is like, they're really all the same around like this value-based selling. What is the current state? What are they currently doing? What are the problems? Can we quantify the problem? What does an ideal solution look like? And what is the benefit of change? So whether that's, a shitty chair, and that's causing back pain, and that could cause a workers' comp claim, and here's what $1,000 chair can do for you and your productivity, versus, spending $1,000 to invest in your career, in your development, to learn new skills, to meet executives at the fastest growing companies in the world. It's the same approach, even though it's dramatically different products.
What, maybe just as like a very high level for folks that aren't familiar with Pavilion, like maybe you can they might not even know it as its name now. They might know it as the Revenue Collective too. So maybe you could just give like a quick kind of like 30-second rundown for the audience too.
For sure. So Pavilion is a career enablement platform really designed to help, our members get to the next level of their career. So whether you're an SDR, whether you're an executive, a CRO, a CMO, we have various programs around peer-to-peer learning. So grouping you, if you're an AE, with other AEs. If you want to become a manager, we'll network you with managers, with other executives to learn from. So we've got different topics of channels around sales development, sales enablement, enterprise best practices, prospecting, you name it, where you can ask questions and get feedback. We also have a variety of courses and certification programs where you can take sales development school, sales school, frontline manager school if your goal is to become a manager. We also have a rising executive program if your goal is to become a director or eventually get into the VP role. Oftentimes these skills aren't taught. Even though I knew I wanted to be in sales, like I didn't study sales in school. I just kind of had to learn as I, learn on the fly, as most people in revenue roles do. And so that's really what we're providing, along with a number of kind of career enablement services. So helping you find a job, helping you negotiate the best offer, anything you might need to become better in your current role or get that next role that you're looking for, you can find within the community.
That's a hell of a pitch right there.
Well, at least I'm doing something right.
That's great. I'd love to hit you with a few rapid fire style questions for the next like few minutes as we're gearing towards the end here. So first I want to get to, we're big learners on this podcast, big readers. You mentioned the Talent Code earlier. I'm curious if there's any other books that have either made a big impact in your career, any that you've really liked even just reading this year. It doesn't have to be necessarily sales related. It could be really anything, but just curious if anything comes to mind.
Yeah. So The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon was a great one.
That was great.
Came out, and definitely not just for sales leaders. Another one is, First Break All the Rules, which was my first management read, and also one of the most eye-opening books that I can still remember years ago. And then Retention Point is the most recent one that I read, all around specifically membership growth and really the importance of retention as a growth strategy, which is a very popular topic right now as a result of COVID. So those are some recent ones.
On the topic of the first book you read as a manager, I feel like a lot of people in the audience are either aspiring to be a manager or are first-time managers. It's a tough role. Any tips that you'd give to your former self, like the first time that you led a team?
So I would say, and this is, I'll first share a piece of advice that I got that was my North Star for getting the role that I want at any given point in my career, which is, my mom always told me, like, act it and you will be it. If you want to be a manager, you act like a leader on the team, right? You've got to be a leader first. It's not like, well, I'm an AE, so like once I get promoted to manager, then I will step into a leadership role and a management role, right? If you are an AE and you want to get into management, you are going out of your way to help onboard new reps without your manager asking you to. You're checking in with them. You're asking your manager, hey, can I mentor this person? I noticed they need some help in these areas. Hey, I've learned a lot of new techniques in prospecting. Like, would you want me to lead a weekly prospecting session on these things? Like, it's not my job, but I'm going to go above and beyond to help you out, right? If you help your manager and make them look good, they will help accelerate your career because they won't want to lose you. So I would say that's like a piece of advice that I've always embraced, that's helped me get various roles. And then I guess advice to myself in terms of what I would tell myself as a first-time manager is, and this is a common mistake that most first-time managers make, which is like, we want to be liked, right? Because I stepped into a role where I was managing my peers. So just having a transparent conversation of, and really just even, and this is where, plug here, frontline manager school, right? I didn't really have any management training. So I really just wanted my team to like me. And I felt like that's what would motivate them versus really thinking about accountability metrics and a sort of operating cadence that would make an impact to have that level of like separation. Because you can still be, an energizing and motivating and an inspiring leader while not trying to be liked all the time.
I love that. Also, your mom just sounds like a badass. Can we just put that out there? We got to get her on the podcast.
She totally is.
All right. Next question? What's bumping in the LG, Spotify, or Apple Music, or wherever you listen to music? Like, what's going in the headphones nowadays?
Okay, so the first thing is Drake. Any and all Drake is like my number one, artist of the year for probably the past few years. Justin Bieber. I mean,
okay.
Just it is what it is. I'm a believer. And like I would say the playlist is like chill R&B is kind of like my, late night on the laptop, looking at the forecast, like, and, chill or old school hip hop as well, are kind of like the two stations on Spotify that are my go-tos.
I love it. We're on the same page on all of those. I got two more for you. Anyone that you've been following recently, it could be like a LinkedIn follow, it could be a good podcast that you listen to, it could be YouTube channel or whatever it is that however you kind of like learn and take it in for information, but anyone that stands out or shows that stand out or blogs that you've been tuning into recently?
I think so. Where I personally have been learning the most hasn't been from LinkedIn or blogs or things like that. It's been through my executive mentors in Pavilion. I actually just before this podcast got off with Russ Mikowski. He's one of our consultants in the community. So I'm personally grateful that I am also a member of Pavilion still. However, with that being said, I would say I still do learn a lot from LinkedIn. Kyle Coleman is fantastic. I follow him.
He's great.
Kevin Dorsey is great. Follow him. And so those are the, I'm blanking his name, Florin. He's an SDR leader with some really, really great tactical pieces of advice for either SDRs or SDR leaders. Florin, I'm blanking his name. But yeah, those would be kind of the main players.
Got you. All right. Last question. Who should come on the Millennial Sales Podcast next that you know?
Ooh, who should come on the Millennial Sales Podcast? Let me think about this. I know lots of great people. I would say, and this is, I'm saying this not because he's my little brother, but Stephen Guerra. If you do like family editions,
yeah,
that would be kind of fun, kind of cool. But don't tell him I said this. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this, but he is an absolute rock star, and he is way smarter than me. But he's an SDR leader right now, and he's built SDR programs from the ground up. He's, pretty successful for where he's at in his career. And I've learned a lot from him as far as breaking into enterprise accounts and just really kind of tactical, sales development techniques. So I think he would be kind of a cool guest. And the other person I would say would be, I guess who would you be looking for? Like a leader or an individual contributor or?
Either one. I've had anyone from an SDR to CEO, all on here.
Let's get Sam Jacobs.
I had him on. I'll get him back. Let's get him back on though.
Yeah, let's get him back on. And then the other person I think would be, Caitlin, over at ChargeBee. She's the head of global enablement. She would be a really good person to have on, as well as, let me think here. Let me think of a strong female leader.
Look at these referrals, everyone. This is how you get them at the end of a call.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, this is how you do referrals. Katie Ivy would be great, as well as Jen Spencer, who was actually recently promoted to president at SmartBug. She was actually promoted in a few different executive level roles at SmartBug, also a member of Pavilion. But I think it's pretty rare that you find a female in that position, and she's just fantastic. So hopefully that gives you a few people.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I've never had I've never had like a sibling duo of podcast guests in my years of doing it. So that's fun too.
Yeah.
So I'll be going for Steven. LG, I know we're at our time here. I appreciate you coming on. Maybe just before you go, let us know where's the best place for folks to hit you up if they have questions or want to connect.
LinkedIn or in Pavilion Slack.
That's it.
I
appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Bye, Tom.
Thanks for checking out that episode of the Millennial Sales Podcast. We're in the home stretch, November and December of 2021. Let's close this on a strong note. Please make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening here. It'll help me grow this show and provide better content for you. Otherwise, hit me up on LinkedIn, Tom Alemo. I'll see you there. Peace.